I was only following orders, I was only doing my job. A sentence that is completely fine if you work for a construction company and they decide to make more money by using dung instead of cement, so you shit in your hands to get the building materials, which you then use to build a giant statue of the world's most impressive man, Hassan Piker. But not so much if you're a lawyer and it's your job to cover up war crimes, illegal espionage, and illegal surveillance. And to do so, you ruin the lives of heroes that stood up and gave the general public a chance to see what their governments, their supposed servants, do behind closed doors. Australia seems to have a pretty rich culture of whistleblowers and an even richer culture of hanging them out to dry. From David McBride, an army lawyer who exposed war crimes committed by Australia in Afghanistan, to Richard Boyle, who exposed how the Australian tax office act like loan sharks in collecting debts from small businesses, to Witness K and Bernard Collaery, who attempted to report an illegal corporate espionage operation committed by Australia in order to steal oil from one of the world's poorest countries, to Julian Assange, a man who exposed countless American war crimes, the shocking rate of civilian deaths in the USA's imperial wars, and also, perhaps most importantly, Hillary Clinton is somewhat shash. What do all these cases have in common? The Liberal government is desperately trying to ruin the lives of all these heroes, and they're succeeding. Not because it's a popular thing to do, but because there's enough soulless lawyers, bureaucrats, and politicians that are perfectly happy to act against their own values if it means collecting a paycheck. David McBride is facing 50 years in prison for attempting to stop war crimes. If you want more detail, I suggest you check out this video, but the absurdity of that should not be lost on you. Our Department of Prosecutions has not gone after a single one of these proven war criminals that are in our midst. Those murderers are still mixing in our society. But the one guy that stuck his neck out and did the right thing. I don't know how many ANU law graduates are now paid entirely to devise ways to put David in jail. And you know these lawyers, they'd all study their fucking high-minded righteous concepts at uni, but when it came to putting them into practice, silence. Not one of them has had even a fraction of the courage that McBride had, or at the very least stood up and said, "I'm not doing this." It's the exact same story with Assange. When Julia Gillard incorrectly proclaimed that Julian Assange had broken the law by publishing the Iraq war logs, George Brandis, knowing of Assange's popularity, was more than happy to correct the record to win political capital, pointing out Assange hadn't broken any laws. Then when it came time to actually stand up for Assange, Brandis hung him out to dry, as has every Australian government since. At that point, Brandis fell back on the usual unproven sexual assault allegations as a way to justify his malfeasance, but that's just one of the rationalizations used in the revolving door of justifications those who hate Assange plough through in order to have a semblance of an argument as to why, let's be honest, they think Julian Assange should die. So yeah, first it was the sexual assault allegations. Yep, that's justification enough, kill him. You know, the allegations that didn't at all appear to be blown out of proportion and weaponized by the CIA to make it easier for the US to extradite him. The allegations that are so serious that the victim, in the same breath, accuses Assange of the heinous crime of not flushing a toilet. But now even the critics can't weaponize that alleged transgression because prosecutors dropped the charges against Assange, the judicial equivalent of flushing the toilet. So the next argument off the merry-go-round seems to be he didn't redact, he was reckless, he endangered lives. Which for one, amazing these people never seem to give a shit about the fact that the USA enters into reckless and illegal wars that cause millions of unnecessary deaths, but all of a sudden, they really care about some Iraqi source who might have been compromised on page 300,000 of the war logs. But just like the pantsuits the purveyors of this argument usually wear, it's clunky and honey, it just doesn't work. Journalist and lawyer Mark Davis, which side note is my lawyer, so you know, real deal. Less importantly, he was with Julian Assange when WikiLeaks published the Afghan war logs, and he's always pointing out, Julian did redact. It's now been documented in court. Mark did a great speech about this a few years back, and I highly recommend you watch it because he tears apart these myths about Assange, and it's very entertaining. So with that argument totally owned, the Assange non-enjoyers fall back on their last and definitely strongest point, drum roll. He won Trump the election! Well, if winning Trump the election is grounds for doing what the USA is currently doing to Assange, you better round up a grand jury and get ready to do what Trump's election slogan says and lock her up. Lock her up. I'm sorry, but if you think someone should be jailed for exposing DNC corruption, what would be wrong with Trump demanding that whoever leaked the Hollywood Access tape be jailed? In fact, that'd be better, because at least that'd be really, really funny. He released top secret state stuff, folks. Now, I like things to be open. I think that you should have everything out there nice for everyone to see, but not that. Some things have to be private. So it's abundantly clear. There are no rational justifications for what the US and their allies are doing or have plotted to do to Assange, and the people going after him know that. They only give out these justifications to help themselves sleep better at night. I wonder how they can sleep at all, as it was recently revealed that the CIA plotted to assassinate Assange, garnering moderate outrage and shock from the public, who have become so accustomed to their Western government's downward spiral into overt authoritarianism that a political assassination of a journalist warrants nothing more than an eyebrow raise. But to be honest, it wasn't a revelation to me either, as the USA are currently assassinating Assange. They've been doing it for a decade now. Short, sharp, secretive assassinations are so 20th century. This has just been an assassination by torture and attrition. This is a tactic also being used by the Australian government. Listen to this chilling excerpt from David McBride's interview with Michael West.
Government would like, they would like to see me commit suicide. Then it's not like two equally matched sporting teams fighting each other. They are pretty bad. And if you work for the government on this, they wouldn't say it out loud, but they would be happy for my children to self-harm, for me to self-harm. They really want to destroy me, and they think that that's part of the job. No, I say it's not. That's not the Australia I grew up in.
Harrowing. So-called liberal governments want heroes like Assange and McBride dead, and I'm starting to think they're going to get their wish partly fulfilled. Assange recently had a stroke, and if he doesn't survive extradition, there will be blood on a lot of people's hands. So, I will give the CIA this ultimatum now. Let Assange go or suffer the consequences. Write to your local MP. Get them to publicly back Assange. Bring him home now. You shouldn't be in the Labour Party if you don't have the guts to follow Kevin Rudd's lead and stand up for your fellow Australian. You have been warned.
Right now, an Australian citizen who's never been convicted of any crime is being held in a maximum security prison in the UK with rapists and murderers. He's been denied his freedom for a decade. The persecution of Julian Assange by the United States government must end. And finally today, Barnaby Joyce has stopped hiding in the cabinet and has spoken up. Like Barnaby, I've never met Julian Assange. I don't agree with everything he's said or done. Frankly, he's a ratbag, but he's our ratbag, and he's entitled to the same protections as an Australian as you or me. For 10 years, the US government has been trying to extradite him, take him to the United States on trumped-up politically motivated charges. If convicted, he'll face an effective death sentence, and make no mistake, if he's extradited, he will be convicted. No defendant has ever escaped prosecution in the US Eastern District Court of Virginia, where they try intelligence matters. But his real crime is to have upset powerful people. He revealed classified documents that exposed US war crimes in Iraq. For this, he's being treated worse than actual war criminals. By the time all these appeals are finished in the legal system, he'll have had more time inside than a rapist or a murderer. Now, it doesn't matter whether you like him, it doesn't matter whether you dislike him. It doesn't matter whether you agree with him, it doesn't matter whether you disagree with him. He's entitled to the protections that any journalist enjoys for journalistic activities, which is what he's done. It's disgraceful that Australia's Foreign Minister and Prime Minister have done effectively nothing to speak up for him or for press freedom across the world. Now, I hope that Barnaby Joyce finally coming out will give Liberals the confidence to also speak up and come out of the closet where they've been hiding. There is no legal resolution to this case. There never will be. There never can be. It is inherently political. It needs political leaders to speak up in support of our values and our citizen. Labor's position by the alternative Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is clear. This must end. It's now on the government to speak up and do something.
Please share and comment below. Comment.